Hello everyone, this is Kiru's show here, and whenever we last left off, I was talking about how they would go to Todoroki's high school, because it's essentially a higher class school, and I actually forgot to mention something. Now, Momo Yaoyorozu, basically Momo, I don't know if her and Todoroki actually went to the same high school, but let's just say they went to the same, well, not high school, middle school. That's what I meant, and I somewhat said high school last time, because I just rewatched the last 5 minutes to get a good understanding of where I left off in these videos. Now then, because of that, I am actually going to be trying to do this a bit over again. They would have been going to the same middle school, and people would have. Well, Deku, his quirk, people would just call it Powerhouse, or he would just call it Powerhouse. And he would try to get it classified as one quirk, but people wouldn't really, well, he wouldn't really be able to because of how diverse it is. Because some of these quirks do seem similar with the way they act and the way they are, but sadly, they cannot be condensed down that far. Now then, basically, people, it would be public knowledge that there's a quirklet in their middle school, and he's essentially holding the world record for the most quirks that a quirklet has ever had, which is 9. But Deku, just anytime people would walk by him or approach him, they would think that he's just weird because he only ever really seems to be absorbed in his novels and whatever he's reading. Now, because of essentially his interaction with Bakugo and the teacher, and the horror story he read from her having, he would have actually gotten into horror stories. Just like how Bakugo is really into romance stories. So it's a similar interest, but it's really not, because they're different genres of reading. Ow. Now then, this is whenever, let's say that one day they're in class and Deku's essentially reading 6 books at once, and people are staring at him. Deku would immediately just look, he would start looking in their direction, somewhat puzzled, and let's just say he had a lollipop. He had it, so he would immediately just take it out of his mouth with his left hand and look over and ask everyone questions. Like, he would just politely ask them to please stop staring at him. And this is whenever they would all somewhat nervously apologize, saying that they're sorry for staring, but they're just curious what's it like being a quirklet. Deku would just explain that he doesn't really feel any different from whenever he first manifested his quirks, or whenever he first manifested the rest of his quirks, but sometimes he just feels nothing, but that's essentially because the doctors figured out what one of his quirks do. They essentially call it last stand, because no matter how hard I get knocked down in a fight, I will constantly have adrenaline. Well, my adrenaline, it will spike. The doctors have said that it would spike somewhere between 200 to 1,000 times normal limits. They would say that that sounds crazy, and he would say that yes, it is, but it only would activate if he feels intense pain. And he was essentially, because of this quirk, essentially pumping that much into his body at once, it immediately scorched his nerve endings, meaning that he can only feel really intense damage. And then he would then flip to a page in the book one of the books he's reading, saying, for example, this. And it would just be a picture of extreme dismemberment. Like, let's say that this was like somewhat of a history book, and it shows a guy being boiled alive over a fire in a metal horse, or the time that people would literally tie one man's limbs to 4 different horses, and then mush them all at once. essentially ripping them all off. He would say that those are some of the very extreme examples, but it's not just that. The reasons why his quirks are so powerful. He would then immediately lift everything in the classroom, somewhat freaking everyone out. He would say that not just that, but he's essentially not just very rare with the amount of quirks he has some pretty rare quirks. People would immediately ask what he means. He would then ask someone to hold something up. Someone would hold up. Well, he would then ask someone that he will steal an item from them, but they just have to tell him what item that they want him to steal from them. Someone would reluctantly just say, "Oh, how about my phone?" And let's say that they were wearing their hoodie, and Deku would just tell them, "Alright, done, it's right here in his hand." And people could see through Deku's sleeves, or see up through his sleeves, because he had them rolled up in class, because he would just say that it feels nicer that way with his arms. He would just tell them that, "Fine, here," and he would immediately flip up the phone. Now, the person is confused, and this is whenever they would say that that's not possible, right? And they would immediately check for their phone. Deku would just hand it back over, saying that he has 9 quirks, and some of them are combat-oriented, some of them are just really, really, really cool. They would ask what he means by this. He would immediately turn on AMP. Now then, whenever this would turn on, the lights in the room, someone would actually have to turn them off because they seemed like they were about to be overloaded. Now, as soon as they turned off the light, this is when they would look over at Deku, and they would see that his body is essentially... He has an aura around him glowing. Not like that picture, but... No, not like these. I will have to find a picture like that. It essentially looks like black lightning around his body, but his eyes are glowing green. No, or not. It looks like red lightning. Red and black lightning. Not like the canon lightning for One For All, but different enhancements. Well, different methods of enhancement, same result. Now then, this is whenever they would look at Deku and his eyes would have actually turned red. Because I want to change the color of the lightning, because I think just having green for always would just be weird. So people would immediately look at Deku. Some would scream. Deku would use his telekinesis to flip on the light and actually turn off his eyes. He would then apologize, saying that he's sorry, but this quirk is kind of his favorite, along with his portal quirk. They would then ask what he means, and he would then write down all the quirks and what they do, giving a brief explanation as Todoroki would get back from the bathroom, and Hakakure is just trying not to laugh at everyone. They would then ask they would ask Todoroki that he missed it. Deku showed off his quirks. He would then just say, "Oh yeah, no, I already know what his quirks do, and I already know what they are. People are wondering what he means," and they would immediately be met with the fact that Todoroki and Deku are friends. This is whenever people would actually be confused and class would be let out. Now, as soon as that happens, Deku would just open the window, saying that, "Alright, he's out," and he would immediately just fall back outwards on the window. People are confused, and they don't know how to react. So the teacher just goes, "Wait, what?" As they would immediately see Deku's flying outside the window. People are then astounded, saying that he's a liar, he doesn't have 9 quirks, he has 10. He would say, "No, this is his telekinesis." And he would then pick up Todoroki and Hakakure, or Toru. And I want to do something a bit different. Let's say that her quirk, she has more control over it, so she's actually visible. Because I want to see if I can find a picture of her actually being visible. Because the only thing I've ever been able to see people actually ever do is basically just draw her from the chin and mouth up, along with part of her nose. Which really does not make sense to me. So I actually want to see if I can find a drawing of her like that, actually visible, and if I do, I will include it in the next video. But anyways, now then. They were essentially flying home. Deku would actually fly by Todoroki's house, dropping him off. Todoroki would say that that's pretty cool, thanks Midoriya. And they would then be off flying as Todoroki's mom would actually wave off to them. Now, Hakakure is trying to tell Deku to remember that they have to go to a court counseling again tomorrow around 5 to 4 o'clock. And that it's very important that they don't miss it because they said they were going to be bringing in more people. Or miss... Let's say the Yayu Rozu company is the one that actually does fund the organization. So it would not be a parenthesis or a branch of the company, but it would actually be its own separate place. Huh. Okay, let's say that it is ran by... Let me find the name in this notebook. It's going to take me a minute. Okay, that took me actually not a lot of time. It took me like less than 5 minutes to actually find that. I'm surprised. Now, this is actually the quirk heater that I've actually brought into this what if that Deku sometimes uses. Because it's one of his more dangerous quirks with the way it works, so he doesn't like using it very often. Because if he does, people would actually consider him to be a quirklet villain. Now, Heater is essentially the OC's... Well, my villain OC's quirk, and she is to actually counter the OC I made, which is actually the name of my YouTube channel. Her name is Minuko Kenjo. Now, this basically means fire and cremation and incineration. I actually really like the name. I found it to be really creative, and I found a good way to put it together. Along with a... Oh, crap, I never did submit that hero for... Oh, crap, I wonder if the series is still going on. I was supposed to help fill in spots in, like, the support class, and I actually made a hero that basically kinda actually has Light Strider. I forgot to send her in. Now then, let's just say that they are... that. Okay. The woman who runs the organization is Minuko Kenjo. In this version of reality, she exists, and she's quirkless. Now, she's actually a blonde makeup artist, who essentially has had to deal with quirklet people because her father was a quirklet. But somehow, she was born quirkless, which it's not a bad thing, but people kind of expected a little bit better. If not expected her to at least have a quirk. But they can't really be mad because they expected her to be a quirklet. And her dad was a bit unstable. Now, the reason why she's actually helping people is because of the way she saw how it affected her father with quirk counseling. Because he essentially never went. Anyways, they are talking about this, how Miss Kenjo is actually bringing in more people for them to talk to. And this is whenever the sludge villain attack would happen. Because let's say they're going to go hang out at Deku's house and actually play a bit of games. Or like actually train his quirk a bit. which is hard for him to do a bit because he has to train selected things, and training them all at once has been proven difficult, if not overwhelming. Now, he has actually. There's a technique that you can use. I think the guy who won Wheel of Fortune, or not Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, he uses it where he can rapidly switch from tactic to tactic over and over again. I don't remember what it's called, but it's essentially like fast-paced learning or something, where he can immediately switch from one task to the next on a dime. Let's say Deku's been trying to master that, and he's actually somewhat been able to get a hold of it. Now, they get attacked, Deku would immediately warp these two away, making them invisible, and he would then switch to his telekinesis, actually holding the villain in the air and slamming him into the roof, just holding him there. Now, All Might would arrive, and he would see this, and he would turn to see that Deku, he's visible now, and he would see that Deku is holding him up there, and Deku is essentially being charged with lightning. As he would turn, and he would just see Deku's eyes are red. Now, he would immediately be taken aback by this, and actually somewhat be hesitant to approach him. Deku would then say that, "It's alright, All Might, I got him. You were chasing this villain, correct? Well, he tried to attack us, so I used my quirks to actually get away from him and hold him down, or essentially capture him." All Might would have immediately jumped to the conclusion that quirks, he has two. He would ask Deku what his quirks are, and Deku would say, well, he has quite the list. Now, All Might nearly went into cardiac arrest hearing the list, thinking this might be all for one son, and he has like 20 or 30 quirks. But as soon as he would see that it's essentially not all for one son, and he has this many quirks, essentially his own enhancement, and a portal quirk, he would then come to the conclusion that this is Izuku Midoriya, that kid that they essentially have him in the same town as. Now, the reason why him and Deku are always in the same town is because if he is ever to go missing, All Might is immediately supposed to jump in to look for him, because of how powerful and dangerous his quirks are. So essentially, if Deku is to ever go missing for more than 48 hours, or go 48 hours being unnoticed or uncontacted, All Might is legally allowed to break shit to find him, because of how dangerous all his quirks are. Now then, this is whenever, instead of Deku actually Deku actually leaping onto All Might's leg to see if he can become a hero, this would actually be... Ew. That did not feel right. Okay. This would essentially be Toru jumping onto All Might's leg. And he wouldn't realize that she was invisible this whole time, because he thought that she was just hiding behind him. Now, she actually does, let's say she wears like athletic gear, so like armbands and hand wraps and stuff like that, so that she can actually see her arms. But she doesn't go overboard, like wear makeup and wigs and stuff like that to be seen. She could, but through quirk counseling, she actually became comfortable with her own quirk, so she doesn't want to do that anymore. She used to try and do that, but people were off-put by the fact that you can see straight through her eyelids. Now then, Deku would immediately go chasing after them with his telekinesis, and as soon as he would catch up to them, this is whenever Deku would actually hand back the bottle to All Might, saying that he nearly forgot this, and that Toru, that was not very smart, you almost made the villain escape again. And how this is not very good for All Might's hero work. He would then ask All Might how long his time limit is. All Might would be more taken aback by this, asking how does he know. Deku would just state that over the years he always collects information on heroes, and he noticed somewhere around Enter All Might's injury year that you stopped doing hero work as much as you did before then. But not just that, but your eyes essentially also look different. You've lost the white in your eyes and it's been replaced by a shadow or darkness. Essentially, you seem like a shadow of the former hero you used to be. Now, All Might would get mad and take this as somewhat as an insult, but realize that this kid is actually right. Now, after that, Deku would hand him the bottle, saying that this is the villain, and it's a good thing that he caught it. All Might would then nervously laugh, saying that, alright, this was a good joke, but now he needs to hand over the other bottle. Deku would just say, other, as the explosion would go off in the distance. Deku and All Might are essentially would turn their head looking over to Toru. And he would then just say that this is not what he needed today. Now then, he would immediately pick up All Might and Toru and actually fly over to the scene to see what's going on. Now, All Might's telling Deku that he can't go straight into the battle because if they see some skinny guy, they're not going to believe. Well, if he buffs up around them, that people will know his secret. Now, Deku would say that there's no need, and he would then immediately set them down half a block away in an alley or on the rooftops to where the villain is attacking. Now then, this is whenever Deku would actually go down onto the buildings, into the crowd, and he would shuffle through, finding out to see what's going on. Now then, he would immediately be met with the realization that this villain is essentially taken a hostage and is trying to actually take over their body. Whenever he would look and see this is whenever he would see that it is not Bakugo, it is actually Ochako. Ochako, not Ochako. She could immediately just use her quirk to make the villain fly away. Not Momo. Yeah, let's say it's Momo. And as soon as he would see this, Deku would immediately just rush in. People are saying that that's stupid, that kid's gonna get hurt. As Deku would immediately create a giant flash of light, appear right in front of the villain, smash him, tear out, rip out, or he would immediately grab the side of his face where his eyes are and sweep them to the left, actually ripping Momo out and using his telekinesis to actually fly away with both her and himself. He would then get her to safety and use his enhancement quirk to actually blast away the villain, changing the weather. Now, Deku is actually quite muscular, but this is not out of his own. Well, essentially, he has found that working out actually gives him a form of, well, not relief, but it essentially helps his mindset. So he would always constantly work out because it would produce, I don't remember exactly what chemicals it produces, but I think it produces like the chemical reaction for satisfaction and like a job well done because of how you build up a sweat. So Deku would immediately do that, and people are. Now then, this is whenever Deku would actually specify that his name is Izuku Midoriya Facet 9. Now, what I mean by facet, or he would say QK9. Now, a lot of heroes, they would have actually understood what a lot of what Deku was saying is, but civilians would be somewhat confused, and they would immediately apologize, saying that it was good that he stepped in and actually helped them. Now, basically what Deku said is that his name is Izuku Midoriya, and he is a quirklet with 9 quirks. Now, the simple way he said it was essentially the way you would say it in a combat scenario, where if a hero was trying to tell you to stay out of the battle. If you essentially had the right quirks, you could just say, I have 2 quirks and one of them. And if they said that you can stay in the battle, you were basically given permission from a hero to use your quirk. Now, since he basically said QK9, they basically knew that he had 9 power. Okay, I'm having problems with recording now, so that's fun. Anyways, this is whenever Deku would actually be approached by All Might in his buffed up form, saying that he did very well and actually performed better than he expected, and even finished the fight very, very quickly. Now, All Might is saying this and he's laughing, he would immediately feel a drop of rain. Everyone would then look up and see that there are clouds overhead and it is now raining. Now, people keep muttering to themselves that that kid was strong enough to change the weather. They don't even think All Might. Well, they think only something that's not. Blah, I'm gonna cry. Anyways, they would think that that's something only All Might would be able to do. Seeing that that kid might be on the level of All Might, even then he still has more. He outnumbers him with quirks, but he might even match him in power. Now, some are saying that he would make a very powerful villain. Deku would have overheard this and immediately claimed to the crowd that he is Izuku Midoriya, quirklet. He is a quirklet with 9 quirks, and he is going to be a hero. And he would then, as he would say that, he would immediately flash a smile to everyone and give a thumbs up. Now, this would have actually somewhat weird people out, because they would have thought only quirklets were emotionless, yandere type people. Basically like the worst of the worst. Psychopaths, sociopaths, people who felt no remorse and were basically war-torn killing machines. So this would have actually threw with their perspective out the window. Anyway guys, I'm going to be leaving this off of here, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I have to edit all these together and hopefully get it out now.